Okay, so I hope I'm sharing now. If you have it on your phone, you should be seeing me. Okay, so we learned in the halacha that you only become liable for payment when the goods are delivered to you. But let's say the shopkeeper, the dry cleaner, or the tailor keeps the garment with him and lets you know it's ready for you to pick up. You're not in violation as long as you don't pick it up, because at least he has an object of value that he can use. It's not like you've left him without any assets at all. So, and even if the shopkeeper tells you, the workman tells you, come bring the money, your object is ready, you're still not in violation. So Rav Stern just writes in the Biurim as follows: L'chora nira delav davka ba'ofen zeh, ela afilu im kfar holicha uman et hatalit leveito. It would seem to me that even if the worker brings the garment to your house ready to deliver, Barosa limsorlo, and wants to deliver it, Rashaya balabayis lo lekablo mimenu. The balabayit is permitted halachically to refuse delivery. Provided that even though you have the money, you don't have the money available to pay him because you have to pay someone else for it. He says, and you will still not be in violation of Baal Talin. The zelo gora minasinas mashkon. The amrinan dehecha shenosin lo mashkon eno over. Gam im hapoel hayavadai ma'adi verot samos. He says it's no different from, let's say, giving the worker collateral in lieu of payment, even though you know that he would much prefer cash than your watch, let's say, if you don't have the ability to pay him. Mikol makom kevin sheyesh lo biyado neged scharo enani karibolo sashog begomer kamoshakasav harav kan behemshech. V'chein mashma v'bir halacha simin reish mem beis divrei maschal lechabed ayin sham. So he says we also saw this in the Bir Halacha when we learned this halacha some time ago. We were talking about a person who doesn't have the ability to pay Erev Shabbos is allowed to tell the fellow, hold on to it until after Shabbos and I'll come and pay you then. Ulam says, he says, however, Aval, the Sefer Divrei Mishpat Shimon Lametes, Sivav Kvar Hirgish, the Midivrei Halavush Muchach Dolo Svirle Kahasma. He says, however, this whole halacha is based on the psak of the Sma, who's a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, who says that as long as you give him collateral in lieu of cash, you're not in violation of Baal Talin. However, it seems that the Levush does not agree with this. The Matzinu b'Levush shekasav hatam de'eno over, kaven de'en ha'uman nasno lo mochelo al tashlum haschiras kol zman shehu biyado. Because the Levush says that so long as I, the worker, have not delivered it into the hands of the balabayas, and I basically tell him it's ready whenever you want to pick it up, I'm indicating to him that I'm not in immediate need of cash. That's another way of looking at this halacha. It's not because, you have the object in hand, so therefore I don't need to pay you right away because you always have the assurance or, the sense of security from having an object of value. That's not the way the Levush understands it. The Levush understands that the reason why, when the guy says, please come and pick it up, that I don't have to pick it up right away is because he didn't make a point of saying, I need the cash. You got to take this right away. And it sounds like from the Levush, therefore, and this is what was bothering you, Moshe, that if the worker says, you really need to pick this up and I need the cash, and I need you to do it today, Afal pidelo noto balabayis es atalis afilo hachi over al bal talin. It sounds like, according to the Levush, you are in violation of bal talin. Uve'emes the hashita mekubetzes bava metzia kuf yud beis amid aleph dan be'inyan zeh v'kasav sham b'shem haramach v'zal. The Shita Mekubetzes actually deliberates on this issue, and he writes, "Umihu tzarich iyon heicha da'amarle gamartiv ba v'tolo so v'havemos." He says, what if instead of the worker, the artisan, saying, "Your object is ready for pickup," he says instead, "Your object is ready for pickup. Please pick it up today and bring cash." Right? What if he says it in that way? Okay. Iamrinan de kamanda ahadrini hale dami. So the Shita Mekubetzes asks this question. I'm not sure if the Balabayas waits a couple of days before picking it up. Is he in violation of Bal Talin or not? Because at the end of the day, the artisan now is a shomer chinam. He's watching his object for free. Afal gavda amar le gemartiv, afal gavda amar tul kelecha ba'avemos. The lo karinan be pula sachir itzchashrei ein pulaso etzlo kein nira v'tzarach iyon ad kan l'shana. He says, it would seem to me, perhaps, he says, he's not really sure, he leaves off with tzarachin at the end. It could be that he's no longer considered to be, even though he said, I finished it, come pick up your money, it's not considered to be a pulat sachir anymore, the work of a day laborer, since he has the object in his hands. So you're not in violation, so long as you haven't picked up the object that was prepared for you, the garment or whatever it is.
With your local rabbi, I'm not giving you a psak. What does that really mean?
Oh, so that's a very good question. The answer is that in many areas of Choshen Mishpat, these issues are not finalized, and knowledge of the fact that I may, according to some opinions, be in violation of the Torah law should give me pause. Mm-hmm. If a guy says, "Come and pick up your item; it's ready for pickup," the menschlich thing to do, now that I know that there may be an issue here, is to say to him, "Do you need the money right away? Or can you wait another 30 days or a week? Because it's inconvenient for me to pick it up now, or it's hard for me to put together all of the cash. I'm waiting for an influx of cash. Do you mind waiting? Do you have room in your warehouse to store these items for another week?" That's what you should do, because especially in certain businesses, probably like a business like yours, for you to tell a guy, I'll come next week to pick them up. If he tells you they're ready for pickup, some people might get annoyed because there's costs involved in storage. There's the inconvenience of having to wait a certain number of days for payment when he's out of pocket for the expense of having schlepped the stuff or manufactured the stuff or whatever it is. And in your industry too, right? So when you know that you may be creating a hardship for your manufacturer, then at least ask him. So technically, can you argue, well, I haven't taken delivery yet, so I'm not in violation of Bal Talin. Shkoyach. In real life, are you potentially causing a hardship for this manufacturer? Yes or no? He's a small business owner just like you are. What is your responsibility, A, halachically, and B, ethically? What is your responsibility? And so it seems that, okay, technically, according to the Sma, so long as I haven't taken delivery, I'm not in violation. So really, I can sleep well at night. Really? What about the fact that, according to the Lavush, if you know that he wants you to come pick it up right away, then you still are in violation, because he says, please pick it up right away, and bring cash. So if you know that, according to the Lavush, you are in violation, midioraisa. Okay, but I can rely on the Sma so I can sleep well. Yeah, but wait a minute. But what about the fact that he's got a family just like you do, and he doesn't have payment yet, and he was counting on that payment? Okay, so now you know. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question?
No, but yes. No, it is what it is. Would it be so Matan and the Meshlachite has to prevail?
No, but it's more than just Midas Chasidus over here. When there is a Midas Chasidus, we've pointed it out. It's more than Midas Chasidus. It's an issue of that, according to one opinion, I am in violation. We do have this principle of Hamotzi Mechavero Olav Haraya, that when push comes to shove, if a guy were to litigate against me in a case like this, he would say, hey, I didn't get payment, let's go ask a shayla. Now you have power, right? Because you came to the shir. There's a machlokus between the sma and the lavush. When a guy says, I want cash payment right away, you can say, but Rebbe, sma paskins, and here it is in black and white in the Rav Shulchan Aruch, that as long as I haven't picked it up and he has it in hand, I'm not over on Baal Talib. And that was never part of the deal, right? So you have power now, right? But how do you feel about yourself knowing that according to the lavush, you are in violation? So why put yourself in that situation of the machlokas? It's not even a midas chasidus issue anymore. It's not like, oh, I'll be such a tzaddik and I'll pay you even though I'm not mechuyev to. No, according to the lavush, you are, because he understands the halacha differently. So that should weigh on a person. Yeah.
Would it be more clear if it was out at the outset what was to happen? In other words, you said when you took your dry cleaning in, it didn't say something like it'll be ready on Sunday. It says pick up at the latest on Sunday or something, so that then you know that you don't have forever.
Right. Well, so the standards in a dry cleaning business are it'll be ready next Thursday. That's the soonest it'll be ready.
Right.
And then there's usually a sign that says garments left here over 30 days will be sold or something like
right.
that.
And that allows for this kind of leeway where you don't have to pick it up. But I mean, I just mentioned the dry cleaners, but in the case where we're talking about here, if the person said, I want you to pick it up on this day when it's ready, and you agree to that at the outset, then does that narrow the scope?
Sure. You've made a contract.
And perhaps that's the way to go, so that you don't have all of this uncertainty around what happens when it's.
I think the answer to a lot of this is has to be prepared point by point of what the agreement is.
Right.
We don't discuss any of this that in advance, that 1, 2, 3, 4, this, it's all like, okay, I'll see you, maybe Monday, maybe like, there's nothing that we're talking about that is in writing. So obviously it's clear cut that we need to, everything today should be clear cut. We're having a contract.
Right. And then you don't get into this.
And then you don't have it, and you still get it to problems.
But at least they get the contract to rest.
Right. But now going to the dry cleaner will never be the same experience for me.
Hopefully you don't feel like I'm taking.
But you want to come back plaza, they're Muslims, you're not over, it's a chiyuv.
Which you don't feel like I'm taking you to the cleaners.
Right, yeah.
I was just speaking with my son that I mentioned yesterday, and he told me another situation. He deals with a number of different contractors for different projects, and he always tells me when he's dealing with someone who's from, because he has one guy. He has one. So for the first is the good news. He's got one from contractor who he says is a prince of a guy, and is ehrlich. He's honest. He's reliable, and he's never had a problem with him. But this is now the second from guy who's a contractor, who he basically said in the middle of the project, the guy got married to a very wealthy girl, and immediately his whole attitude changed. Not that he said it outright, but his attitude now has become that no, if I don't get it done, he's got all the comfort in the world. He's not hungry anymore. Doesn't have the same ambition and drive to make money because he just fell into a huge fortune. And he's been holding up the project for over 6 months in just getting the job done. And he has this is again contracting that we saw, and his attitude is, if you try to take action against me legally, it won't work out well because he's got deep pockets. He can always, so.
Not inspired.
Yeah, right. So,
First and last time to do it.
right. Well, that's it. That's how you learn. And the reason why I was reminded of it, I said, but didn't you guys have a contract with penalties built into the contract if he doesn't deliver on time? He says, I would normally do that, but he's a friend, he's a frum guy, and so we didn't have that built in. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and so I told him, I said, Ellie, this is the problem in the religious world, is that Choshen Mishpat is not taken seriously as a discipline and as an area of halacha that should guide one's life for so many people, because it's just not studied. People don't even realize that these things have been codified. So even when we leave off with a tzarachian, we're not really sure what the final analysis is, but at least just by learning the discussion, we have it on our consciousness. It's like it now becomes part of our mind, that if a guy says, hey, I'm not happy with the way I've been treated by you in this financial exchange, so then you'll immediately say, well, I wonder if there's something in the Imrei Yaakov that would address this kind of situation, because now it's going to give me pause. Now, wait a minute. I'm a person who lives by halacha. How is the halacha going to guide this issue? Okay. So anyway, let's.
I guess that might be worse if you're people dealing with the Gentile world. Chillul Hashem on top of everything.
And then there's a Chillul Hashem on top of everything else. Yeah. So, right. So just, even if a person is very frum, first of all, give them the benefit of the doubt. If they deal with you in an improper way, that they may know less than you about halacha when it comes to Choshen Mishpat issues, no matter how religious they appear, they present. You may look even less religious than them, but its appearances really mean nothing as far as their knowledge base and as far as their conscience. And then second of all, like you said, Moish, have a contract. Don't rely on a handshake just because a person is an Orthodox Jew, because there are no guarantees.
In some ways, it protects them too, because then they follow the letter of the law rather than being over with respect to properties.
Correct.
Also.
Right. Agreed. Okay. She'im no sein mashkon and likutim. Remember, the Rab Shulchan Aruch had said, if you can't, or if you're having difficulty paying your workers at the end of the day or at the end of when they deliver the goods, you can mitigate the prohibition of baltolin by giving them an object of value that could cover their wages in the event you don't have cash. They may not be happy with it, but you've at least mitigated the prohibition, the biblical prohibition of baltolin.
Doesn't really help. Like the point is to be menschlich and pay them the money. The guy needs the money for Shabbos.
Right.
And by making him feel better, saying, here, hold my phone for the next month. And what does that mean? So that means eventually I'll get why are you being
okay, because
you can feel better emotionally.
Essentially, again, baltolin is not only to make sure that he has food for Shabbos, but also to give him the peace of mind to know that he has an assurance of being compensated. So So even though you haven't provided him what he really was looking for, but you've given him something. You've given him the peace of mind that he's got a Rolex now, and if he needs to, he can hawk it in a pawn shop. If the guy doesn't come through, he's not going to just leave you high and dry. That feeling that I've put in a hard day's work and I'm not getting paid because the guy stiffed me, that's like the most. That's such a terrible feeling, right? Can you I'm sure we've all had that experience at some point in our lives. Yeah, you probably have it more than a guy like me does, but we've all had that experience in life where we were expecting something for our hard work. And anyway, okay. Shim no sein mashkon. What if the worker is owed payment and we're speaking by phone and he's not coming in? And I tell him, look, I don't have the payment yet today, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give your friend my Rolex. He'll hold on to it for you. Does that satisfy, even though it hasn't yet come into his hand? He says it would seem to me, says Reb Stern, that as long as the worker has the ability to pick up the collateral item, as long as I've released it to somebody else who can easily give it to that person, then then I've successfully mitigated the problem of Baal tolling. Okay. Let's go on. Let's go on to the next halacha. Yud Daled. Ein balabayis over mishum bal talin ela baboker rishon velo mishum velo savo alav hashemesh ela ba'erev harishon. He says you're not in perpetual violation of bal talin. In other words, if 5 days go by instead of 1 day going by that you haven't paid the worker, there's only one violation of Baal Talin. So it's, let's say his payment is due tonight and I let the next day arrive before I pay him. So that's one violation. If the following day elapses, still only one violation. Kimimash mashenem lo talin pulat sachir itacha ani yodeya sha'at boker. He says, and it's based on the way that I read the pasuk. The pasuk says, do not leave the wages of the worker with you. And then the Torah continues by saying, until morning. So, matamulomar at boker, isn't that already implicit? That if he's already due payment immediately, why does the Torah have to say until the morning? Melamed she'eno over below sasu shel Torah ela baboker rishon. So the Gemara learns from that verbiage that you're only in violation that one time, that morning. Umikol makom. So even though technically you're only in violation once, but midivrei Kabbalah chayv litain miyad shetovo leolam. But from the later sukkim in Nach, we learn that you always have a standing obligation to pay him as soon as possible, whenever he asks you for the cash. The chol eis sheisha over belav shel Kabbalah. And therefore, for every day that further elapses, you are in violation of another thou shalt not that is based in Nach, not based in the 5 books of Moses. And what is that? It's the consequence is that you know that God is not happy with you. It may not rise to the level of a mitzvah lo saseh in the Torah, but it certainly rises to the level where the Navi is castigating a person for not doing what he's supposed to do. And it's based on a pasuk in Mishlei, which says, Al tomar l're'acha lech vashuv u'machar atein v'yesh itach. Do not say to your friend, go and come back tomorrow. I'll give you, if you have the money now, and you simply, it's just inconvenient for you to pay him, you are in violation of this pasuk from Mishlei. It's Mishlei Perek Gimel. Now, the only time that you're in violation of this verse from Proverbs is if your objective is to delay him from getting paid. And you could pay him, but it's inconvenient, or you'd rather not pay him because you'd rather use the money for something else. But let's say you're mamish in the middle of work and you can't pay him right now because it'll require you to interrupt everything that you're doing. You are permitted to say to a person, look, I don't have time this very minute, but come back at such and such a time and I'll be able to pay you then. So if a guy shows up at your doorstep and you're in the middle of some kind of production, you're in the middle of a meeting, you're not obligated to interrupt everything that you're doing in order to pay him once you've already been over on Baal Talin. In other words, if you've already been over on Baal Talin, you have a standing obligation to pay him ASAP, provided that you're not in the middle of an activity. If you're in the middle of an activity, it's legitimate to say, as soon as I'm finished with this activity, I will pay you. And please just wait for me or come back in 2 hours or whatever it is.
Does it rise to a Torah law if you make another promise? In other words, if you owe him tonight and you say, I'll pay you tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes in the dark and you say, okay, I'll pay you tomorrow. And if you keep reinstating, does that change?
Yeah, it sounds like the contractor who keeps pushing the guy off that we learned about yesterday. I'll finish it next week. Oh, I meant to finish it next week, but right. Right. It logic would dictate that this is something that well, what did you think of when you said it initially? Did you genuinely want to pay him then? And then something came up, or was your objective always to just get him off your back by telling him something that wasn't true, or something that you knew that perhaps you wouldn't follow through with? So let's see. Obviously, logic dictates that lying to a person, or at least being insincere in a pledge, is a terrible thing. Yeah, giving him false hope. Right? No, he's saying that it's just once, period. If I owe you money and I don't pay you by the end of the day, I'm in violation of one mitzvah losa. Even if it goes on for 3 months. But the pasuk in Mishlei says that there's every day that goes by, there's a new prohibition. So one's a mitzvah losa, say from the Torah, and one's a mitzvah losa, say from the Navi. It doesn't count. It doesn't have the same standing, but it's still something that you know. It's not a doraisa, but you're over on a. It's even worse than a derabbanan. It's midivrei neviim. Okay. Okay. So the Imrei Yaakov says, Ela baboker rishon. You're only in violation that first morning. Beinim tavo v'lo nasan lo va'avar baboker rishon. Beinim lo tavo baboker o shelo hayalo. The ba'ofen ze ina over belav de lo talin afilu hachi ina over alav baboker sheni. He says, once if the first day comes and you have the ability to pay him, you're over on Baal Talin. And the second day by the time the second day comes around, there's no longer a additional biblical violation. And basically the Imrei Yaakov is just pointing out that there's another scenario where if I don't have the money to pay the person on the first morning or the first evening when he finishes the work, we said before, if I don't have the cash, I'm not over on Baal Talin. It's when I have the cash and I don't pay him, then I'm over on Baal Talin. If I don't have the cash on day one when I owe him the money, I'm not over on Baal Talin. And if day two rolls around and I do have the cash, I'm still not over on Baal Talin. It's a technical issue. Okay. I'm over on the pasuk in Mishlei. Yeah, it is. Aval imhu tarud, but if you're busy and that you tell the guy, please come back in 2 hours, I'm in the middle of an important meeting, he says, V'dafka legabe al tomar l'reachamo lepotru kishu tarud. Aval heichadika bo lav de baltolin min haTorah inamol tirdosav lepotru uchtelakamen sifyut chesayin sham. This is a very important proviso. You're only not in violation of the pasuk in Mishlei if you tell the guy to come back in 2 hours. But if it's at the end of that day when he finished the work and he's expecting payment at the end of the day, you can't tell him, I'm sorry, I'm busy, come back later. Once he's finished the work, you have to stop everything that you're doing and pay him and interrupt whatever's going on. Because provided that it's within that window of that evening or that morning when the work is finished. You do have a right to tell him, I can't pay you at this moment, but I can't pay you at 4, but I'll pay you at 6. That you have a right to do because you're still within your time limit. But you can't go beyond that time because you're in the middle of something else. That you don't have a right to do. Okay, we'll hold it here for today. We'll pick it up in Mirza Hashem tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you lost the money, and you thought you'd have it, or
It's not clear. It's just saying I can't pay you.
right.
So that's
You wouldn't
again, the
hold the
whole
contract with someone, and knowing you wouldn't have the money to pay it.
Right. So
You
that's.
lost the money.
I think